Hello, it's Doc Severson for the ReadySetCrypto OMNIA newsletter market update for Sunday, the 21st of July. When I figure out what to put into these update videos, a lot of it depends on what's happening with the overall market. So I'll scan the top 10 coins and look at what's going on. So right now I see a lot of red, although it's not seriously red. 3 to 4%, believe it or not, in crypto is like no big deal. That's a very average day. And as I look down through here, yeah, we have some red when it comes to some of these altcoins, but that's very natural because of the fact that BTC is the reference currency or the currency in the denominator. So if you can see a red candle here, that means that your denominator is going down, which means the fraction value goes up. So if we look at something like this, we see, okay, VeChain, and okay, VeChain's been up a little bit over the last couple of days, but this is not a primary uptrend yet. So that's one big mistake that I think a lot of retail traders are making is they see something like this, like altcoin rally, it's heading over, finally, it's an altcoin rally. And no, this is not an altcoin rally. This is Bitcoin being soft as the reference currency or the base currency for that transaction, that currency pair. So looking at the top 10 and looking at some of the bigger alts, I really don't see anything that's strong today. We can look at some of the top 10. We will do that later on in the video. But for right now, what I want to do is just focus on the king, which is BTC. And quite honestly, what I like to do is I like to focus on the BitMEX swap contract because it's the most liquid, most actively traded Bitcoin entity that's out there, not necessarily the spot currency on some random exchange, but it's under one exchange. BitMEX perpetual contract is the most actively traded Bitcoin entity or asset. It is a derivative, but it's a derivative based on the spot currency. Okay, so when I'm cutting this video, if we're starting to drill into Bitcoin here, I'm cutting this video about 6.5 to 7 hours before the end of the day and the end of the week. So keep that in mind that there's much left to go on this candle. And by the time that I record this, and by the time that you read this, things may have changed. But a lot of times we don't see big changes on Sunday anyway. So we will proceed with the analysis here. So the whole point here, and I'm going to keep repeating the same things over and over again because it's extremely important that you stick to the fundamentals and you stay away from the eye candy that's over here because everybody's trying to get your attention. Everybody's got a hidden agenda, whether it's clicks or whether it's try to get some coin to move somewhere. And the more that we just stick to analyzing the price and what the price is doing itself, the better off that we're going to do. So we have, in this case, a weekly uptrend. We have a series of higher highs and higher lows. It's all right. It's okay for it to actually come down. And I think that we will start to see the energy on this. The energy has been just completely tired for the last several weeks as we've gone into kind of a parabolic rally. Anytime you get into one of these rallies where the rise over the run or the slope gets nearly infinite, there is a price to be paid for that. And right now, that's exactly what's happening with this. And it's meant to scare people. It's not really meant to. This is what people do to themselves, right? There's no person behind the green curtain pulling the levers on this market. It's what people do themselves that causes markets to move because of fear and greed. Okay, so primary uptrend, even if we go out to, let's say, the monthly chart. Let's go super big here. That's just one big monthly swing. And a lot of people are out there saying, oh, well, that's just a lower high in the monthly chart. And this thing's going to go all the way back down to Bitcoin $200 again. Okay, I don't think that's going to happen. If it is going to happen, we'll get plenty of notice before that were to occur because tops are a process. They're not an event. Okay, so back to the weekly chart. Weekly chart uptrend, good. Okay, good if you're a bull. Now, as I count back these, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So what's going to happen as of tomorrow morning is actually not much, because this little candle here is going to drop off. This little candle is going to drop off, and we're going to be left with the 13 candles, which include this one, all the way up to whatever the next candle is going to be. And I don't think the energy is going to be all that different, because this candle is not going to necessarily, the act of that candle dropping off is not going to change the mix of the remaining 13 candles in terms of the linearity of the trend. Linearity of the trend is what this chop index measures, and the linearity of this trend is going to be a lot stronger or a lower value here than a trend that does something like this, which has no linearity to it almost whatsoever. All right, so the more that we start to get into, the more that this becomes the dominant price action, the higher up the energy is going to be. And this is why we always say that range expansion leads to range contraction. And this is where the price coils up and starts to build energy and build energy and build that potential energy until, boom, the next level comes. And in this case, what we always say is rule number one is that larger time frames dominate the trend. And a weekly chart is a pretty dominant time frame. And if the weekly chart is in an uptrend, then we have to give that the benefit of the doubt. The second rule is that reversals start from the inside out. And so as we go now down to the daily chart, we can see that we do have a downtrend here. But I ask you, sometimes there is science to this and sometimes there is art to evaluating a market. And if I see something like this, where it's just like, you know, good God, stand to the side, you know, kind of thing, that's a downtrend. This is not that. This is more of a gentle sloping downtrend, which looks like a great big weekly bull flag, or the beginning of a weekly bull flag. So again, let's compare this versus some of the fun, let's call it fun, that we had back in 2018. This is like, look out below. I mean, these are strong, strong moves on big volume. This is not what we're seeing right now. What we're seeing right now is quite different. And this really is consolidation. This is corrective behavior. Yes, it is. But this is just the market saying, look, could you just give me a break for a minute? Just back off and let me catch my breath. This is really what it is. As far as I can tell, this is what the market is telling us right now, is just give me a break. So what we've already done is we've gone into this sort of concept of, for those of you that are trying to acquire positions of value, this is where the value zone is. Right now, the swing test of 9,100 is the low point, and the 61.8% retracement is kind of the beginning of that zone. So as long as we don't spend any significant time below 61.8% on this retracement, then we don't necessarily have to fill in the triangle. So if we count this as the beginning point of this swing, and that's certainly arbitrary, but if we count this daily swing as the beginning point, then 61.8 is just around the 10,000 level. And so what are we doing today? Is the price breaking out? What's going on? So far you can see that this is another lower high on the daily chart. It's a lower high. And that's what we talked about. We had this little, let's go down to the 5-hour chart. We had this breakout from here. Okay, so that's good. And we've already hit a higher high in the 5-hour chart. So that's good. What this does mean is this increases the probabilities that at some point here, we're going to put in a higher low. And then if we put in another higher high from here, then we start the process. Reversals start from the inside out. Going down to the 1-hour chart really isn't going to help us that much. It's almost like too much granularity. But the 5-hour chart really does a great picture with today's volatility of showing you what's going on in terms of the polarity of the price action. So we have a 5-hour uptrend right now. We're still putting in higher highs and higher lows, but that 5-hour uptrend has to propagate to the daily uptrend. So the daily uptrend, this is still lower highs and lower lows. So far, this is just a lower high. So here's what has to happen for this thing to reverse, right? So a couple of different things can happen from here. Either this just blows up to the upside, which is unlikely, Or what could happen is more likely is that a good strong higher low gets put up on the daily chart. So maybe one more plunge down to 10,000. And this is where people will finally say, oh, I can't do this anymore. I quit. I'm just going to puke my position out. And this is where they sell into that. And those that tried to get in down there or didn't get in down there are going to say, man, the next dip, I'm not going to let this one get me by or get by me. So this is where a combination of people that have a weak hand finally just can't take it anymore, as well as bulls that are looking for the next value point, say, man, if it gets down to 10,000 again, I am in. I missed the first couple of times, but now it looks like the price is starting to, and we can even put some MACDs on here. Let's do that. Let's go over to the MACDs. I've got some templates for this. And MACDs will show us if we're starting to get positive divergence. And I don't see any yet. So what we're seeing here is that this is lower lows, and we have lower lows on the MACD, which is the MACD histogram. So what we should start to see at some point when we're just about ready to bounce is we may have positive divergence showing on the MACD. So far, this has just been a very short, mild consolidation on the weekly chart. So I'm going into great detail for this just to show you how to evaluate a chart and what it's doing. We're not predicting the future. We're just trying to understand the clues that it's giving us. Price gives us clues every single day. And we do our best to ignore them, don't we? Because we get confirmation bias from these fine folks down here. We'll read some article that sounds reasonable, and all of a sudden, boom, we're converted like that. And all of a sudden, we're a big fan of that author based on one article. This is the way the human brain works, right? We look for stuff that we want to believe in. And then all of a sudden we'll latch onto that with all of our might, and we're not going to let it go. And that's what confirmation bias is, because you will look for things that agree with that article, and you will argue with people that disagree with that. So bottom line, this is what I'm looking for. I think the bottom is in for right now. That's just my opinion based on the swing test, based on the way that the price reacted off of that swing test, which was pretty violent, on okay volume, not great volume, but okay volume. And I think what has to happen now is one more probe down here to put in higher low, and we'll see if that generates that higher low, higher high, change in polarity on the daily chart, and then we are off to the races. Now, this is still a little bit early because, again, remember, I went back to the weekly chart and said, boy, it's going to take a while. Going to take another weeks before some of these big candles drop off here. And once those big candles drop off, we're going to have plenty of energy on the RSI Laguerre with chop index. We'll have plenty of energy to power the next weekly trend. This is really what's going on right now. It's pausing. It's throwing off those that jumped in at the highs. This is a very natural process. And it's just going to take another week or two. But reversals start from the inside out. We've already reversed at the 5-hour chart. Will we reverse at the daily chart on the next probe down? Will that create a higher low? And this is what I call framing in the price action. So right now, the way I'm going to frame this in is from about 11,200 down to about 9,100, and say if the price jumps through the bottom of that, then this is a lower high, lower low. The downtrend's still in play. However, if we put in some type of a higher low and then break above 11,200, I believe that that's the end of this corrective period. We're at the very least heading up to this descending trend line, which is going to be somewhere around 12,400. Okay, so hopefully that all makes sense. Let's go and look at some other coins, and nothing really looks all that good. Even the top 10, and this is one of the big differences from 2017, is when we had a top 10 rally, everything from the top 10 rallied. And right now, this is more than just consolidation. Bitcoin is consolidating. Ethereum looks horrible right now. We're breaking all sorts of trend lines. This is a serious lower high, lower low combination. Not so good. Okay. I've not been necessarily very kind to Ripple because Ripple cannot get out of its own way. Yeah, it's generating a lot of energy, but a lot of noise. It's like that car that you had back when you were 17 or 18 and you removed the mufflers because you wanted a louder, more powerful, more presence to your car. It didn't go any faster. It was a lot louder though. So this is what's happening is it's building up a lot of energy for Ripple, but it's not necessarily positive. Here's Litecoin. Litecoin is still holding the 61.8 fib, but this has gotten clobbered. And this is going to take a long time before this is not really nice, mild consolidation like we're seeing in Bitcoin. This got ripped. And it's going to take a longer time before this one recovers. Bitcoin Cash, EOS, just about every single one of these is doing kind of the same thing. Even this is Binance Coin is coming in today. So Binance Coin is trading just like the same as the top 10. Here is Stellar. Stellar looks terrible right now. Cardano does not look good. So really, this is why we're going to spend most of our time looking at and evaluating and trading assets that are being accumulated and or if they're in consolidation or in a very light consolidation and not primary downtrends. All right, that is it for today's cryptocurrency market update here at ReadySetCrypto. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on Monday. Take care.